Saudi-led airstrikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen have been systematically targeting civilians. That is according to a UN report obtained by human rights activists. According to the UN report, over 100 strikes have violated international law. The document also says that fleeing civilians have been chased and shot at from helicopters. It was revealed that refugee shelters, weddings, markets, schools and mosques were all among the targets being bombed by the Saudis. Other essential civilian infrastructures have also been caught in the Saudi bombardment. A UN expert panel has now advised the Security Council to launch an inquiry into the crimes, with human rights activists calling for Britain as well to immediately stop selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. But as RT's Harry Fear reports, that's unlikely to happen anytime soon.
At this week's Prime Minister's Questions, the opposition leader called for an immediate inquiry into UK arms sales to Saudi, given these latest grim reports that the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen has been apparently targeting civilians. But Cameron didn't take up that call and instead reiterated his scripted line, which is almost identical to the one from last week, instead saying Britain has some of the most stringent arms control procedures of anywhere in the world.
Will the Prime Minister agree to launch immediately an inquiry and a full review into the arms export licences to Saudi Arabia and suspend those arms sales until that review has been concluded?
Our arms exports are carefully controlled and we are backing the legitimate government of the Yemen, not least because terrorist attacks planned in the Yemen would have a direct effect on people in our country.
But this isn't the first time Cameron's ignored calls to suspend arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Just last week, a Scottish nationalist leader in Westminster accused Cameron of effectively taking the UK itself into a war in Yemen. Let's recap that.
Thousands of civilians have been killed in Yemen, including a large number by the Saudi Air Force.
That's right.
And they've done that using British-built planes with pilots who are trained by British instructors, who are dropping British-made bombs and are coordinated by the Saudis in the presence of British military advisors.
Well, earlier this month, it was revealed that the UK's arms sales to Saudi Arabia have been more than flourishing. They increased in 2015 more than 100 times, sales worth in excess of £1 billion. But despite all this heat on the UK-Saudi relationship, it appears that the bond between the countries, a bloody bond, critics would say, is unbreakable, at least under Cameron's Conservative administration for now.
Saudi Arabia began its bombardment in Yemen last year to aid the former president ousted by the Houthis. But with civilian casualties rising, questions are mounting over possible double standards out of Riyadh.
There's a clear double standard when it comes to the actions or inactions of Saudi Arabia involving be that be extremists and supporting, providing weapons and money. The war in Yemen since March already has been taking place in front of the eyes of the Western world, and everybody's turning a blind eye, calling it an internal affair of Saudi Arabia involving its neighbor, even though this is a sectarian war. This is a country where women are killed by stoning for adultery, and anybody who is not following the strict principles of the Saudi regime are condemned to that. Nevertheless, we get most of the press coverage focusing on countries like Iran and completely giving a free hand to Saudi government.